Caleb Morgan outside ICU. Agent Rebecca Quinn briefing D. Damien Locke in his luxury office. Caleb with Quinn in black SUV. The trap confrontatio. Courtroom scene. Damien Locke sentenced.
The Arizona desert doesn't forgive. Not the sun, not the dust, not the silence, and not a man like Caleb Morgan, who had once sworn he'd never break the law, no matter what life threw at him. But life, as it turned out, wasn't throwing punches anymore. It was kicking him in the ribs. Caleb sat alone in the flickering light of the hospital vending machine. The only sound in the waiting area of Tucson Children's Hospital was the low, steady beep of machines from behind the ICU doors. Behind one of those doors was Eli, his 11-year-old son, small, pale, tubes running into both arms like vines pulling him into the earth. Staged for kidney failure. They said it like they were reading a weather report. Like it didn't tear a man in two. He had tried everything. Applied for Medicaid, GoFundMe, church fundraisers, odd jobs no one else would take. But the costs were relentless. $1,600 a week just for medication. $200 every dialysis visit. And the waiting list for a transplant? Years. His wife had died 2 winters ago. Cancer. That had been the first time he prayed. This was the second. And still, nothing. That night, when Caleb stepped out for a smoke he hadn't had in over a year, someone was waiting. A man in a gray baseball cap, standing by a black Escalade. He didn't smile, didn't offer a handshake. Caleb Morgan? Caleb froze. Do I know you? Doesn't matter. What matters is you need money. And I know a way. Caleb stared, unsure whether to laugh or run. It's simple, the man said. You drive. From Nogales to El Paso. You don't ask questions. You don't open the trunk. You'll find 15 grand in the glove compartment when it's over. He pulled out a burner phone. If you're interested, turn this on tomorrow. You've got 1 hour to say yes. Or not. Then he got in the Escalade and vanished into the city night like a shadow that had never been there. Caleb didn't sleep. He watched Eli. He watched the Ford drip. He watched the night melt into morning and the sun crawl over the blinds. He held the phone in his hands for 2 hours before finally turning it on. And just like that, he wasn't a father anymore. He was a driver. The route was clean. From a warehouse near Nogales, across state lines, through a patch of Navajo land, into an abandoned garage in El Paso. No eye contact. No words. No questions. The car had temp plates. The trunk had a seal he was told not to break. The gloves were new. The license was expired but still scanned. It wasn't a delivery. It was a deal with the devil, paid in silence. When he dropped the car and started walking back toward the highway, he felt it. The shame, rising like a fever. But it was muted under something louder. The knowledge that Eli's medicine for the next month was safe. At least for now. At least this once. El Paso, Texas, 3 weeks later. A white Ford pickup rolled through the checkpoint outside Fort Hancock, just a mile from the border. It looked like a dozen others that passed that day. Dust-caked, stereo humming, nothing special. Except this one didn't make it through. 2 agents flagged it down. Just a quick scan, one said, waving casually. Inside the trunk, hidden under what looked like air filters, were 12 tightly vacuum-sealed packages of high-grade cannabis, smuggled through a route the DEA had been tracking for months. The driver was Caleb Morgan. DEA Field Office, El Paso. Special Agent Rebecca Quinn leaned over the table, hands folded. She wasn't the kind to shout. She didn't need to. She let the silence press in until Caleb broke. He looked like hell. Unshaven, hollow-eyed, and older than 41. Look, he muttered. I didn't know what was in it. Quinn didn't blink. That excuse might work for the cops. But not here. Caleb swallowed. They offered me 15 grand. I needed the money. My son, he's dying. I just drove. That's it. Quinn slid a file across the table. Inside were photos. A map. A blurred screenshot from a custom-built messaging app, codenamed Dust. Each communication was wiped clean after 60 seconds. No names. No profile pics. No phone numbers. But the message logs were time-stamped. And Caleb's burner phone had synced with the app just days earlier. This is the real deal, Quinn said. Not some local cartel kids. This is a ghost network. And someone high up, someone clean, is running it. She stared into Caleb's eyes. We don't want you. We want the man who handed you the phone. Washington, D.C., DEA HQ. Quinn flew out the next morning. She had been chasing the Mirage route for 18 months. A supply chain that ran clean through Mexico, Arizona, New Mexico, and up to Oregon, but left no bodies, no gang signs, no guns. Only perfect timing, legal facades, and a nickname whispered in fragments. The broker. No one knew his real name. No photo. No voice. Just that every driver used a different car. Every load went to a different warehouse. Every burner phone had a unique encryption. Until now. Because Caleb had given them one thing the others hadn't. A location. Tucson, Arizona, a defunct logistics center. 2 nights before his arrest, Caleb had stopped by a rundown warehouse. He wasn't allowed inside. He only dropped the car, walked away. But Quinn's team pulled security cam footage from a nearby gas station. They saw a man walk out. Black ball cap. Sunglasses. No identifiable tattoos. But the timestamp matched. And the man's movements were deliberate. Confident. Clean. He wasn't hiding, because he thought no one was looking. Quinn played the video on loop. She whispered, "You're not invisible anymore, broker." Caleb's deal. Back in holding, Caleb sat with his court-appointed attorney. The man was exhausted, overworked, probably underpaid. "You'll do 10, minimum," the lawyer said. "They've got everything." Caleb didn't blink. Didn't flinch. "What if I give them more?" "You don't know more." "No, but I can help find him." The lawyer stared, then picked up the phone. Quinn returned the next day. Caleb didn't ask for a deal. He didn't want to be cleared. He wanted one thing. "Just make sure my son lives long enough to say goodbye to me." She shook his hand, and the hunt began. San Diego, California, Locke Logistics HQ. The office was glass, marble, and money. Damien Locke stood behind his floor-to-ceiling window, sipping coffee that cost more than most people's rent. Below, the early morning traffic hummed through downtown like obedient insects. He didn't smile. He never did. Instead, he stared at the screen on his desk, a map with blinking dots, each one a signal, a route, a package in motion. Status. His assistant, a young man with Silicon Valley charm and cartel nerves, replied calmly. "One compromised in El Paso. DEA's holding the driver. They're connecting some dots, but not all." Damien closed the map. "Start the burn." That afternoon, 3 warehouses across New Mexico were wiped. Employees were paid off. Cameras destroyed. Phone numbers switched. All communications on Dust were remotely wiped from the root server in Estonia. No traces. No fingerprints. No voice recordings. Damien didn't need muscle. He had servers. He didn't need guns. He had silence. Washington, D.C., DEA Ops Briefing Room. Agent Rebecca Quinn stood before a digital board showing photos, numbers, and blurry security footage. Caleb's cooperation had led to 5 minor busts. But the broker remained a ghost. "We believe the man in charge is operating through a front. Locke Logistics," she said. Registered owner, Damien A. Locke. Age 44. Born in Portland. Former crypto developer turned global logistics consultant. She tapped a screen. Damien's LinkedIn profile appeared, buttoned up, elite, award-winning. No arrests. No flags. No overseas records. Too clean. Another tap. A satellite image of a private jet. He flies bi-weekly to Panama, Costa Rica, and Prague. 3 nations. No extradition. The room went silent. Back in San Diego, Damien's penthouse. He stood in a dark room, lights off, curtains drawn. A jazz record spun low in the background. A burner phone rang once. Then again. He answered on the 3rd. "Go." A voice replied. "We've confirmed." Caleb Morgan flipped. "They're working fast." Damien said nothing. Just walked to a steel drawer, opened it, and removed a new SIM, a fake passport, and a thumb drive labeled Mirage Exit. "Tell the clients to reroute. Move all new shipments to sea freight only. Shut the Arizona line permanently. What about the east route? Let them watch it. I want them busy while we vanish." He hung up, then looked out the window. "You blinked, Agent Quinn. That was your mistake." Phoenix, Arizona, safe house meeting. Caleb sat across from Quinn and a digital analyst named Jake. On the table was a digital recreation of Dust's architecture. Jake explained. Each user was assigned a time-triggered token, not a static ID. But we found a weak link, a silent ping to a central node, once every 12 hours. It's how the command structure kept track. Can we trace it? Jake smiled. We already did. He pulled up a server log. At the bottom, a location. Locke Logistics, San Diego. Quinn's eyes didn't blink. We've got him. 3 days later, warrant approved. Damien Locke arrived at his office to find the lobby empty. His assistant gone. Elevators locked. He turned around. Quinn stood there, badge raised. Damien Locke. DEA. You're under federal investigation. He raised his hands. Calm. Composed. This is a mistake. Quinn stepped closer. We don't make mistakes twice. But it was a decoy. The office was clean. The real Damien had left 12 hours earlier, using a private airfield outside of Santa Ana. The man Quinn had just arrested? A paid double. Quinn's phone buzzed. A video message. It opened to Damien's voice. Clever play, agent. But this isn't over. I don't run from shadows. I disappear into them. Costa Rica, private villa, Pacific Coast. Damien Locke sipped his espresso on the marble balcony of a $6 million hillside villa overlooking the ocean. The breeze carried the scent of sea salt and jasmine. It was quiet. Almost too quiet. But Damien didn't trust silence. His burner buzzed once. Then again. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked back inside, where 3 travel bags lay packed, and a hidden compartment in the floor held $2 million in crypto wallets and 6 passports. The villa was temporary. Everything was. Washington, D.C., DEA Task Force Room. Agent Rebecca Quinn's eyes were bloodshot, but her voice was sharp. The man we arrested in San Diego wasn't Damien Locke. Facial recognition confirmed. He's a former offshore contractor, paid monthly by one of Locke's shell firms in Panama. She pointed at the board now covered in string lines, maps, and travel records. Locke faked his own arrest to buy time. And he's still moving product. Behind her, Caleb Morgan sat silently. He looked different now. More alert. Less broken. If he's still using dust, we can catch him. Caleb said. Quinn nodded. That's the thing. We think he's modified the app. Now it only pings when linked to maritime shipping manifests. We traced one just last night. Cargo left Long Beach, bound for Panama City. And Locke. He's already there. Panama City, Port of Balboa. A massive cargo vessel called the Ophidian sat anchored, its steel sides rusted but humming with quiet activity. Inside one of the containers, hidden behind crates of legal shipments, were 36 sealed packages of cannabis concentrate, coated only with internal QR tags. Damien Locke stood at the dockside, dressed as a shipping inspector, clipboard in hand, sunglasses on, an earpiece hidden under his cap. He moved like a ghost through the crowd. But he wasn't unseen. From the roof of a nearby warehouse, DEA liaison Jorge Velasquez adjusted his scope. Target acquired. Locking visual. In Quinn's earpiece, back in the mobile ops van. You're sure it's him? Positive ID. Scar under the left jaw. Same gait. It's him. Quinn clenched her fist. All units, hold position. He's walking straight into the trap. But Damien never walked straight. He turned down a narrow dock alley, then disappeared behind a stack of steel drums. Seconds later, a remote-controlled decoy drone took flight from the shipping container. On Quinn's tracker, Locke's signal was still moving toward the customs gate. He's running. No, that's not him, Velasquez snapped. Look at the footage. That's a distraction. Quinn realized it too late. Back in the alley, Damien changed clothes, shaved his beard, popped in brown contact lenses. He emerged 10 minutes later as a customs agent. Walked right past the checkpoint, flashed a forged badge, and vanished into the Panama City crowd. Again. Tucson, Arizona, night. Back in his small apartment, Caleb sat on the floor beside Eli's empty bed. The kid was in a recovery center now, his transplant request pushed through by the government. But Caleb didn't sleep. Couldn't. He picked up the burner phone Quinn had left with him, just in case Locke ever tried to reach out. It buzzed. One message. Tell Quinn she's good. But not good enough. Caleb froze. He looked at the screen. No number. No trace. Only 3 words left in the chat before it deleted itself. Next stop, Lisbon. DEA Mobile Ops, DC. Quinn stared at the message from Caleb. She closed her laptop, grabbed her go bag, and turned to her team. He thinks we're always one step behind. She zipped the bag. Let's show him what happens when we leap. Lisbon, Portugal, early morning. The city was drenched in that soft golden light only Lisbon knew how to wear. Trams rumbled through the old hillsides. Locals sipped coffee with pastel de nata, and the Atlantic stretched far and innocent beyond the port. But innocence had never been Damien Locke's game. He stepped off the small charter plane dressed like a minor diplomat, gray linen suit, foreign badge clipped to his lapel, and a diplomatic pouch over his shoulder. The passport he used had clearance. The customs officer smiled and waved him through. Behind him, the sky glowed like honey. Ahead of him, he had 3 hours before the container ship Ilha Verde would dock, and with it, his last major shipment before disappearing for good. Washington, D.C., DEA briefing room. He's in Lisbon, Quinn said flatly. He's trying to close out the Mirage network for good. This is his endgame. She slid a photo across the table, surveillance from Panama, Lisbon airport logs, and decrypted maritime manifest data. We have a 3-hour window. After that, the shipments vanish. And so does he. Deputy Director Monroe didn't blink. You want full jurisdiction overseas? I want full teeth, sir. Let me bring the fight to him. He hesitated. You'll need Portuguese clearance, Interpol support, EU eyes off you. I don't care. I need a green light. Now. A pause. Then a nod. Make it count. Lisbon, Rua de Junqueira, 6:11 a.m. Quinn's boots hit the cobbled streets like a warning bell. Alongside her, Velasquez adjusted the receiver dish slung over his back, scanning encrypted maritime channels and shortwave local frequencies. They tracked Damien's digital fingerprint through a temporary server relay based in a co-working tech hub downtown. The relay pinged one last time, tethered to a Portuguese phone number used for only 36 minutes. But it was enough. The location pointed to a private shipping warehouse 5 blocks from the Tagus River, owned by a shell corporation, registered to a firm in Panama. Got him, Quinn whispered. 7:03 a.m., outside the warehouse. Quinn's team moved fast. No sirens. No warning. Just quiet precision. Inside the warehouse, a handful of men in loading vests were repositioning crates. Labeled medical equipment. Paperwork perfect. But hidden among them, 3 crates, each with a false bottom, each containing compressed cannabis extract valued at over $9 million in European street trade. No Damien. Yet. 7:26 a.m., back in trance. A black Alfa Romeo slowed to a stop. The driver wore a cap low over his eyes, headset in one ear. He waited, watched, then reached for a phone. That was his mistake. Velasquez, crouched 2 stories up with a scope, saw the flicker of Damien's signature copper ring, a detail missed by most, but known by few. Visual confirmed. Quinn, he's here. Don't engage. Quinn replied, already moving. Let him come to us. She slipped through the service entrance with 2 agents flanking. Inside the warehouse, the workers froze. Damien walked in, his voice casual, measured. Guten Morgen, gentlemen. Sorry for the delay. He didn't notice the shift, the quiet, the wrong eyes in the dark. Drop the bag, Quinn commanded from behind a crate. Damien froze, and then smiled. Agent Quinn. But it was a body double. Again, before she could blink, a flash grenade rolled across the floor. A decoy agent in Damien's likeness dropped smoke from a hidden compartment in the ceiling. Screams. Confusion. The double fell with fake gunfire. Quinn fired twice, non-lethal, striking the figure. But it wasn't Damien. It never was. In the chaos, a small rooftop drone lifted from the back alley. A message flashed on her phone. From dust. I told you. I disappear into shadows. But you chase them. 8:11 a.m., rooftop of Lisbon Hills. Damien Locke sat calmly, sipping espresso from a terrace cafe, watching as police and agents scoured the streets below. He placed a final call, to a number that only one man had. Caleb. Across the world, in Arizona, the line buzzed. Tell her she's good. But Lisbon was her last chance. The next one is personal. Tucson, Arizona, 3:48 a.m. Caleb Morgan hadn't slept in 2 nights. The nightmares weren't of prison, or even of the drugs he once carried. They were of Damien Locke, the way his voice still echoed through that single phone call. The next one is personal. What did that mean? Was Eli safe? Was Quinn in danger? Was he the target? Washington, D.C., DEA headquarters. Agent Rebecca Quinn stood in the war room, surrounded by silence. Lisbon had failed. Damien had vanished again. You were too close, Velasquez said. And he knew it. Quinn said nothing. Then suddenly, she turned around and erased the board. Wiped it clean. The photos, the strings, the maps. We stopped chasing him, she said. The room froze. What if, she continued, we flip the game? What if we make Damien chase us? The strategy, Operation Mirror. They would leak false intel, an off-the-books witness protection transfer for Caleb and Eli. A fake route, a fake secure location, a real convoy, and a real Caleb riding in the back. If Locke is watching, and we know he is, he won't resist, Quinn said. Because deep down, men like him need to win. And right now, he doesn't feel finished with Caleb. The setup, 11:07 a.m. 3 SUVs. 2 fake. 1 real. All leaving Tucson Medical Campus, where Eli had just finished his final round of treatment. Inside SUV number 2, Caleb adjusted the collar of a Kevlar vest under his hoodie. I never thought I'd be bait. Quinn, riding beside him, didn't smile. You're not bait. You're leverage. Same thing. Not when I'm the one holding the line. She handed him a burner phone with only one number programmed. If anything goes wrong, press and hold. Don't talk. Don't wait. Caleb looked at her. You sure he'll come? She didn't answer. She just nodded. Outside Santa Fe, New Mexico, 2:26 p.m. The convoy turned onto a scenic highway. Mountains on one side, open desert on the other. Radio silence across all channels. Then came the signal. Velasquez's drone pinged a heat signature. A motorcycle approaching at over 120 miles per hour. Single rider. Black helmet. No plates. Eyes on, Quinn responded. Then the motorcycle disappeared behind a ridge. 1 minute. 2. And then, boom. SUV number 3 exploded into flames. A remote-triggered IED buried roadside. No injuries, only mannequins inside. Diversion. Caleb's SUV swerved. Quinn shouted. Decoy compromised. He knows where we are. But she wasn't panicked. She was calculating. Damien wanted Caleb alive. He wouldn't kill. Not yet. They stopped the car. Got out slowly. Desert wind howled. Then, from the horizon, a sleek, sand-covered black SUV emerged, barreling toward them, slowing just within range. Damien Locke stepped out. No mask. No helmet. No fear. Face to face. Quinn raised her gun. Damien smirked. You finally stopped running. I never ran, she replied. You did. From what this job makes you. You still believe in redemption. In the system. He turned to Caleb. And you still think you're different. But you took the money. You drove. You were me. For a moment. Caleb stepped forward. No. I stopped. And that's something you'll never understand. Damien's eyes darkened. He reached for his inside coat. No sudden. Quinn shouted. But it wasn't a gun. It was a button. And from the ridge behind them, another drone activated. Live explosives. Pointed at SUV number 2, where the real Eli was never placed, but Damien didn't know that. Quinn shot first. The bullet hit Damien's arm. He dropped the trigger. Fell hard. Caleb ran forward, disarmed him. Within seconds, the backup team surrounded them. Damien Locke, the broker, was finally in custody. Bleeding. Defeated. But still smiling. It took 2 years, a dying kid, and how many burned agents, to catch one man? Quinn stared at him. No. To catch a ghost pretending to be a man. Federal Court. New Mexico, 11:03 a.m. The courtroom was packed. Journalists lined the back rows. Every outlet from CNN to local Arizona stations had a camera truck parked outside. The broker had finally been unmasked. Damien Locke sat in a sharp gray suit, one arm in a sling. Calm, unshaken, smiling, as if the room were a board meeting, not a sentencing. Across the aisle, Rebecca Quinn sat in full uniform. She didn't smile. She didn't look at him. Her eyes were on Caleb Morgan, seated in the witness section, just behind the prosecution team. Docket CR 23748. United States versus Damien A. Locke. The judge's voice rang out. The charges. Interstate drug trafficking. Use of encrypted criminal networks. Attempted murder of federal agents. Obstruction of justice. Use of explosives in furtherance of a crime. The room held its breath. Mr. Locke, the judge continued, you've operated for years as a ghost, manipulating systems meant to protect people, exploiting legal facades to fund an empire of decay. You're brilliant. But brilliance without ethics is just cruelty in a sharper suit. This court sentences you to 120 years in federal prison, without the possibility of parole. May you disappear into the same silence you once weaponized. For the first time, Damien Locke blinked. Outside the courthouse, later that day, Quinn stepped into the sunlight. Cameras flashed. Microphones thrust forward. Agent Quinn, how does it feel to finally take down the broker? It's not about feeling, she said. It's about finishing what we started. A voice broke through the crowd. Was he worth it? Risking your life? Quinn looked into the camera. The justice system is messy, imperfect, but today it worked. And sometimes, that's all we can ask for. 2 weeks later, Tucson. Caleb stood in front of Desert Ridge Middle School, hands in his pockets. Eli came running out, backpack bouncing, smile wide. Dad, I made the robotics team. Caleb knelt. You serious? Dead serious. You know what that means, right? Yeah. You owe me a trip to Best Buy. They both laughed. Not because life was perfect, but because it was possible again. That night, in their apartment, Caleb opened a plain envelope. Inside was a letter from the Department of Justice. They had approved his request to volunteer part-time in a federal mentorship program, guiding at-risk youth who'd been arrested for drug-related activity. It didn't pay, but it gave him something more valuable, a reason to keep walking forward. He pinned the letter on the fridge, next to Eli's drawing of a robot with the caption, "My dad helped build this." Closing scene. At the edge of Tucson, where the desert fades into dusk, Rebecca Quinn stood alone on a ridge. No phone, no badge, just her, the wind, and the weight she'd carried for years. She pulled from her coat pocket a small, cracked burner phone, the one Caleb had used. She stared at it, then threw it into the canyon below. For the first time in a long time, she smiled. Lessons from 1. White heavy checkmark doing the wrong thing for the right reason is still wrong. Caleb Morgan was a desperate father. He agreed to traffic drugs to save his dying son. He wasn't a bad man, but his choice was still a crime. Lesson: life may corner us, but it's our choices in the dark that define our humanity. Love is never a license to betray our conscience. 2. White heavy checkmark: the most dangerous evil doesn't always wear a mask. It wears a suit and knows the law. Damien Locke wasn't a street thug. He was a CEO, a ghost in clean clothes. His weapon was technology, legality, and manipulation. Lesson: in today's world, evil can hide behind respectability. That's why we need awareness, vigilance, and legal literacy to stay safe. 3. White heavy checkmark: justice isn't about chasing, it's about outlasting. Agent Rebecca Quinn didn't defeat Locke with guns. She did it with relentless truth, discipline, and belief in something bigger than herself. Lesson: justice doesn't come fast. But if we endure, darkness will eventually tire. The light never does. 4. White heavy checkmark: redemption isn't saying, "I'm sorry," it's living differently. Caleb faced trial, accepted punishment, and rebuilt his life not as a victim, but as a protector for others walking the same edge. Lesson: anyone can fall, but no one loses the right to stand again. Forgiveness begins not with others, but with the courage to forgive ourselves. 5. White heavy checkmark: silence has a cost, but breaking it is freedom. The cost of silence wasn't just a title, it was a warning. Damien thrived on fear, on silence, on people looking the other way. Lesson: never stay silent in the face of wrong. Silence doesn't buy peace, it builds decay from within.